The more people are campaigning in this issue, the more likely we're likely to get it registered with the public their attention, more likely to concentrate the minds of people who need to be concentrated, and the more likely we are to change it all. And I think this is an enormously important issue, and it's right at the heart of a lot of other things. It's people's living conditions. How on earth do you pay your rent? How do you pay your gas and electric bill? How do you pay your council tax? How do you pay, for food, etc.? If your wages are constantly going down and down and down, and the rate of inflation is going up, and your real wages are going down. So I think it's a vitally important class issue, and to me, it's all credit to the Scottish Socialist Party and others for campaigning on it. We, for our part in Edinburgh, we do a campaign stall next to the Duke of Wellington's horse at the east end of Princess Street, and we're doing it there 4 days a week, so we'll be there tomorrow, even if it's snowing, we're there. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I have to say this, Diego, claims to put this issue literally on the map. I got a tweet from a woman in Australia. Like a lot of people in Australia, she's got Scottish ancestry, and she says, I'm coming over to Scotland to check out my ancestry, check my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents were part of the Douglas clan. And she says, I decided I needed to find out where Registers of Scotland is, because this is where all the documentation's held. So she says, I go on Google Map to find out where Scotland is, where Princess Street is, where it will be in relation to where I'm staying. And I go right down to Google Maps to the very essence of, where they take pictures of the street, where the car is obviously going past with the camera and take pictures of it. And right outside Register's house on Google Maps picture, there's a giant banner of the Scottish Socialist Party tied round the Duke of Wellington on Google Maps, arguing for £10 an hour. So there you are, we're a foundation, we're part of the geography of the world in the same way that Ben Nevis is, so look forward to seeing her when she comes. But I remember in the last couple of years, all the protests that are taking place in this city and elsewhere, we were involved protesting outside Pizza Hut's branch in Kirstoften, when the government publishes every November the list of employers who don't even pay the statutory national minimum wage. They don't even pay what they're supposed to legally. They print it every November, a long list of them, and lo and behold, it was Pizza Hut, it was Primark, it was Sports Direct, it was big corporations. Pizza Hut's owned by Whitbread, as far as I understand it. So we went out there and explained to them, hey, you broke the law, we're calling the cops on you, this is an outrage. You can't even pay people the miserly wages that you're obliged to under the law, and we're here to say that that's not enough anyway, £10 an hour. I remember we were outside Accessorise. This doesn't happen by accident. This isn't just a wee forgetful accountancy, I'll do the bookkeeping when I've done the hairdressing. We were protesting 2 weeks ago, this is what these posters here, Apple. We were protesting outside the Apple shop, number 1 Princess Street, prestigious venue. And Apple are the richest company in the world. Saying to Sarah before the meeting started, this is the Financial Times yesterday, Apple are expected to announce on Thursday of this week record profits of £20 billion for a quarter. 3 months, £20 billion. And apparently the iPhone 10 costs £1,000. They've sold 27 million of them. They've sold so many millions of tablets, etc. Their company, they make them in China under a brand name called Foxconn. They pay their employees an absolute pittance in China. And here they are in Princess Street, and we're saying to them, the richest company in the world is claiming that it can't afford to pay £10 an hour. We don't believe you. And actually nobody believes you. And I think, Apple spend an absolute fortune in their PR, want that feel-good factor. I remember when I was in the Scottish Parliament, there's very similar circumstances. The Royal Bank of Scotland was exactly the same. You go to meetings and it's clear, you're not going to get to speak. Who's going to let me speak, are they? So what you do is that pregnant pause after they've made their presentation, and before the chair goes, who'd like to speak? I go, I'll speak. Here, I've got a question to ask Sir Jeremy. What would you say if we were to take the Royal Bank of Scotland into public ownership? This is 2004. Of course, now they are publicly owned, but it's only their debts that are publicly owned, right? And Sir Jeremy looks round the room with the Labour and SNP and Tory MSPs and turns to me and says, I'm confident that'll never happen. In other words, he's got these people in their pocket. And Apple have got these people in their pocket too. This doesn't happen by accident. This is all part of neoliberalism. Tony Blair introduces the national minimum wage in 1999 and institutionalises low pay. You institutionalise it, says that's it, £3.60. It's going to be low pay from now on. I think what's fascinating for us in this discussion in many ways, George Osborne, remember him? I know he's the editor of the Evening Standard now. George Osborne committed the Tories to a £9 an hour living wage, and they're going to deliver it. It goes up another 50 pence in April to £7.85. Then it'll go up another 50 pence next year, the year after. They'll get to £9 because the Tories' neoliberal strategy is about reducing taxation, about reducing public expenditure, and they want the bosses to pay people. They want the bosses to pay people. They don't want the government, the state, taxpayers to pay housing benefit, tax credits, free school meals. They want to pass it on. So you can imagine in some sections of the Tory party it's not that popular, but neoliberalism is neoliberalism, and they intend to push forward a low tax agenda, cuts to public expenditure, and they will argue, well, we're not paying housing benefit, you don't need housing benefit, you get £9 an hour, whatever. That's their plan, and I think sometimes the strategies of this they come together. And then one of the things I wanted to do, like Sarah, was to try and put some of this discussion into context, because Britain's low wage economy is a low growth economy with dire levels of productivity. And there are consequences for that. There are consequences right across the board. 6 million people in Britain today earn the national minimum wage. And 6 million people, as Sarah was saying, 20% of the workforce. And the worst sectors are no surprise to anybody here, are they? Care. Hospitality, as it's euphemistically called, which is bars, restaurants, hotels, chambermaid, that kind of level. Care sector, retail, hospitality. These are the areas that it's criminal, the wages that they're paying to people. 27% of all women in the country, 19% of all men. And I've seen a piece in the Financial Times on Burns Night. Again, National Office for National Statistics report, there are now more people working in Britain than there's ever been. Ever. By the capitalist argument, if there was a labour shortage, wages were supposed to go up. If the employers can't find labour, then the cost of that labour is supposed to rise. We've now got full employment and falling wages. So much for supply and demand capitalist economics. The context of this is the bosses in Britain, the companies in Britain have designed the system where they're driving down wages, low skilled, precarious employment, casualisation, short-term contracts, 0-hour contracts, etc. That's the way they want it. They want a labour force that's unsettled that can be moved around. And these, facts and figures about the rates of employment, it's not just clear that you're talking about the edges of the economy or anything like that. Another Financial Times article talks about productivity in Britain is falling. You hear the figures come out on the television. Why is it there's more people working than there's ever been, but productivity is less? So in other words, the country's producing less now than it did before when there was less people working. And it's because you get casual, low skill, temporary employment, a casualised workforce, and that's what you're dealing with. And I think that the facts of this, it used to be the case that work was a route out of poverty. It used to be the case that if you were unemployed, the way to get out of poverty, pay your own gas bill, feed your own kids, put shoes on your kids, was to get a job. And now you have a position where the overwhelming majority of people who are poor are working. It's the employed poor as opposed to the unemployed poor. And I think that's really important. So the Scottish Socialist Parties, like others, argues £10 an hour is not the £10 an hour maximum. We're not talking about a maximum wage the way you talk about footballers in the 1960s. We're talking about everybody needs to have £10 an hour to pay their own way. You can't pay your own bills unless you're earning £10 an hour. You're still qualifying for tax credits, etc. So in other words, to pay your own way, you need to have £10 an hour. And for me, the issue has never been that the money isn't there. The money is self-evidently there. The money is not just in the profits of Apple and Amazon and the guy at IKEA, I used to be a but I'm not anymore, now that I'm dead. Anyway, IKEA's record profits, etc., they're making a fortune, but they're paying their employees diddly squat. And I think that transcends this idea, well, Sarah, we'd like to pay people £10 an hour, but they've just not got the money, we'll just have to hang on, tighten your belt, just see through this austerity and think they'll be fine, right? the essence of neoliberalism is the rich are getting richer and richer with their luxury lifestyles and their bigger and bigger yachts and bigger houses, etc., and bigger profits, as in the case of Apple. And millions, tens of millions, billions across the world are getting left behind. And so I want to concentrate my remarks, I suppose, on what we do about it. Because if the employer's argument is, and I look at the employers and I look at the political employers' parties, if I can put it that way, the argument is we need Amazon to come to Dunfermline, says Alex Salmon. Give them this big plant, it used to be for Hyundai. Amazon can have that big plant in Dunfermline. They don't have to pay taxes, they don't have to pay rent for a while, they don't have to pay that for that. Because we want to be business friendly. We want Scotland to be a place where businesses can come and make profits and can invest. That's the atmosphere, isn't it? How many politicians for Labour, the SNP, Tories and Liberals do you hear that come all the time? All the time. We want Scotland to be a business friendly environment, and of course it's a euphemism. It's a euphemism for saying it's going to be low paid, it's going to be casual, it's going to be vulnerable employment. You're going to have no rights, no trade unions at Amazon, is there? There's no trade unions in the big, workplaces of Scotland where they've been enticed in on the basis of cheap profits and cheap taxes. And I think it's perfectly clear that working people in the circumstances they're in are angry. And that they are angry. I think that's what Corbyn represents. I think that's what you see in the independence campaign. I think these big movements of people are about the anger people have and a willingness, they want to try and place it somewhere. They want to displace that anger by saying, I want somebody to do about this, right? My job, I have to say, as a socialist, waiting for a Labour government, waiting for an SNP government, that'll never happen. It hasn't happened before. We've waited, and waiting is the wrong thing to do. The trade union movement doesn't wait. We campaign, we agitate, we organise, we raise issues all the time, and we demand people act. And we draw conclusions when they say, that can't be done, I'd like to help you, but it's just not possible. Give me another 5 years, come back in 10 years, we can do it. Waiting's the wrong thing to do. I think the atmosphere that the trade union movement campaigners like us are trying to demonstrate or represent to people is, you've got to refuse to accept this. Refuse to accept it. Refuse to accept less. Refuse to accept that it can't be done, and refuse to accept that there isn't the money there. And then it's a question of campaigning to put pressure on governments to do something about it. So the $64 million question is, how do we get £10 an hour? If the national minimum wage is £7.50 an hour, going up to £7.80 on the 1st of April, how do we get it to £10? And I have to say, one of the things we all do as activists, look around and see where advances are made and how the advances are made. How did they get $15 an hour in Seattle? How are there cities in America where they get $15 an hour, which is the equivalent of £10, isn't it? Possibly a bit more. Where did the campaigns in the continent? Where did the national minimum wage campaign come from? Where did that breakthrough, if you can term it a breakthrough, and it probably was it Tony Blair's idea? Are we to thank Tony Blair for this? No. The national minimum wage was already redolent, present in some European countries, wasn't it? The trade union movement in these countries had fought for it, agitated for it, and again in Britain, Blair never conceded hee-haw without being under pressure to do so. Tony Blair was under pressure for the trade union movement. This Labour government better mean something. It better mean something, you've got to deliver. He was under pressure for the same reasons to deliver a Scottish Parliament, etc. Of course, Blair, his record, and speak about him, quite rightly so, he's hated the stature with every reason, but these reforms that came weren't granted by ideas for sons and daughters of Fettes College. It was the pressure they're under from below, and that's what we all have to do. We have to put more pressure on employers, on our political representatives, etc., and campaign long and hard to do it. And one of the things I think we focus on, I remember the anti-poll tax campaign, civil disobedience. I was watching a thing on YouTube the other day, somebody had to remind, I forget who it was, remind the commentator, it wasn't Tory backbenchers that get rid of Mrs Thatcher. It was 16 million people across Britain who refused to pay their poll tax and said, you can send me to jail in England and Wales. You can send in the sheriff officer in Scotland, they don't care, come ahead if you're hard enough, I'm not paying it because I've no got it. That's what brought her down. And that spirit is really important for us to rekindle, and it's also important for us to remind ourselves and to probably introduce these sentiments to a new generation of working people, that working people aren't impotent, we're not powerless. We don't just have to take this. There's plenty we can be doing. There's plenty we are doing, and we have to inspire people from that. There's model resolutions for the trade unions. One of the things we might want to consider. In the Scottish Parliament, they have a petitions committee. Trade union movement uses it, activists use it. Different from Westminster, you know, they've got that, they say 100,000 signatures and you can get the issue raised in the House of Commons. You can watch them talking about you. Whereas in the Scottish Parliament, you've got a right to go to the petitions committee, present your petition, speak to your petition, and urge the petitions committee to pass it on to the Parliament to do something about it. You know, provided it's germane to the powers the Scottish Parliament have, we have that right. It's maybe something we should consider doing. I think all of these ideas about protest outside employers, I think what we should do, all of us together in the £10 an hour campaign, every November, when the list comes out, the DWP, they present the list of every employer in Scotland who's failed to deliver the national minimum wage, and paltry as it is, should be visited. How's your pizza? You know, go into Primark, oh, tie on your socks. I understand you don't pay but rubbish wages here, etc. There's ways of doing it that are effective. I think that there's techniques. We need to raise the issue, encourage people, there's things that can be done about it, and push forward the agenda. But ultimately, I have to say, because it's at the centre of what neoliberal economics in Britain is about today, there's no shirking the fact that it sits there as the crown jewel of those who are neoliberal politicians. And that those, you know, the whole house of cards, in a way, collapses. What you pull out one card, the whole kind of thing comes down. That's not to suggest that achieving £10 an hour would introduce socialism overnight. That's not what I'm talking about. But that idea of achieving something and winning it spreads like wildfire. Nothing succeeds like success, as they say, you know. I look at the impact, how the anti-poll tax campaign changed the whole face of British politics. The impact that Corbyn's victory in an internal Labour Party campaign changed things, didn't it? Because it was unexpected and it was, you know, people saying, I've had enough of this, I'm going to fight back. That's the spirit we have to encourage. We have to encourage it in a way where we're absolutely clear of who we're dealing with, who we're fighting against, understanding, look, you know, there might be low levels of class combativity, there might be low levels of trade union membership, there might be low levels of class consciousness. It's our job to address those. We don't just walk away and say, what can you do? You say, right, if that's the case, then we have to address it. We have to do something about it, roll up our sleeves. And I think this is a campaign. I've been involved in many in the last 35 years. You can tell this is a winning campaign. You can tell you're pushing against an open door. You can tell the resistance, that they're not pushing us back. You know, we're not getting further and further away from where we started. They're getting further and further away. They're you know, conceding ground. And it's conceding grounds because they have to. When we're petitioning tomorrow, in Princess Street, people say, what good is a petition day? And we say, well, when we started petitioning, all of us, this was £3.60. It's £7.85 on the 1st of April. Yes, it's not enough. Yes, it's not good enough. But this is a consequence of pressure. And this meeting's about building that pressure.